Welcome back to the Sports Source. The segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Are you watching this magical Tennessee football season and wishing you had a home theater room, a 4K projector with a 10-foot wide drop-down screen, surround sound blaring all around you just like you're at Neyland Stadium? If so, then call VFL JJ Surlis and talk to him about a home theater system so you'll be ready for next football season. It's too late right now, but boy, you can be ready for basketball season next summer and then football season. Great thing to have, home theater system, and nobody does them better than Safety Systems. Learn more at safetysystems.com. All right, let's take a look at some small numbers. Depending on the size of your TV, whatever. There are the 6 unbeaten teams that are still left in college football. You see their best win. You see the number of teams that they've beaten in the top 25, and basically you're looking at Tennessee has beaten 5 now. TCU has beaten 4. Nobody else has really played that many. Then you got the remaining schedules, and nobody has a number 1 game like Tennessee does against Georgia coming up. Guys, when you look at the national championship race right now, the only thing that seems like it could derail Tennessee at this point would be if you see the Ohio State-Michigan winner is unbeaten, Georgia finishes unbeaten, Clemson finishes unbeaten, and maybe TCU finishes unbeaten. It may take something like that to shut you out at this point, the way they're playing. Thoughts on the national title picture and the playoff race as it stands?
Well, I agree with you. One of the things that the committee puts a lot of emphasis on is, are you a conference champion? So if Tennessee's not a conference champion and TCU is and is undefeated, that hurts. Same with Clemson and obviously Ohio State. So that would be the negative part of this conversation. But I've seen this before. A lot of folks have gone in the last few weeks undefeated and not been able to come out unscathed because of the pressure that builds up and what's at stake. So I do like Tennessee's chances of making the college football
playoff.
playoff.
And if you want to be afraid of something, and I mentioned this earlier, my worst case scenario would be if Tennessee plays poorly at Georgia and loses badly. And then Georgia goes to play Alabama in the SEC championship game. Bama beats Georgia. That hurts your chances. Doesn't mean you're not going to make it. But that's the kind of the outcome that would really, really make it dicey going down the stretch.
I think it would kill your chances if that scenario happens. If you lose badly at Georgia, Alabama wins the SEC, and Georgia, like last year, they go in. That's right. You're not going to get three teams from the SEC.
No. Right.
It's not going to go in.
That makes this the hugest game ever.
Which makes it the hugest Cavaliers line ever that's coming up.
I'm getting chill bumps, John.
I hope so. Josh, your thoughts on the playoff thing?
Yeah, so if Georgia does win next week, you automatically become an LSU fan. Because if LSU can hand to Alabama its second loss, then you don't have to worry about that scenario in terms of the SEC title game, Bama versus Georgia, one-loss team. But if Tennessee wins next week, they're locked in, realistically. They're locked in because I think if they go to the SEC title game and lose, maybe locked in is too
right,
tight.
Anything could happen, but
almost locked
barring
in.
An
because
insane
I think
upset.
Tennessee at that point, they're going to win out after Georgia, go to the SEC title game. If they lose in a rematch to Alabama, then I think they're taking Bama and Georgia similar to taking Bama and Georgia last year.
Yeah, and if you lose to Georgia next week, then you become the biggest Georgia fan. You want them going to Atlanta and winning. You don't want them losing to somebody else.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a look at the Heisman race. These are small numbers as well. I think the running backs are out of it at this point. I mean, who knows what happens? 4 games to go for everybody, but I think it's down to your quarterbacks. And to be honest with you, Hendon Hooker has played 5 ranked teams. Max Duggan at TCU, again, has played 4 ranked teams, but he's not going to be playing a number 1 team in the country next week. Caleb Williams at Southern Cal. All these guys have very similar numbers. C.J. Stroud is the prototypical drop-back passer, and I wonder how that's going to – it's hard to judge a guy like that versus these dual-threat guys. So I wonder how the voters will look at it. But not to be Mr. Positive Sunshine here, I think Hooker's in the driver's seat on this thing.
I think he is too, and I think he can absorb a loss at Georgia next week. Remember, Peyton Manning couldn't beat Florida. That was the big thing that they hung over his head. Is he goes down there, he plays well, Tennessee still loses. I don't think it knocks him off the perch at all.
Yeah, but then if C.J. Stroud, if they beat Michigan, then that gives the voters something else to think about. The Ohio State quarterback beat Michigan, the Tennessee quarterback lost to Georgia. It's just another negative factor that you got to consider.
You were going to talk about the gambling side.
Oh, yeah, sports betting dime now has Hooker as the favorite in a Heisman race at plus 100. So if you bet, you win your money back. DraftKings still has C.J. Stroud as the leader. Hooker is plus 200, so you could bet 100, win 200. So it depends where you go to make your wager on that.
And look, there's 4 games left for some of these guys. So Bo Nix may go on some crazy run here. Caleb Williams may go on a crazy run. But right now, it looks like it's going to be Hooker versus Stroud. Would you agree?
That's what I said last week.
Yes, I do wonder.
Good for you, Chuck.
Can 11-1 Hooker beat 12-0 Stroud? That's not what it's supposed to be, but realistically, I think that's how it can play out. 12-0 versus 12-0, I'd give Hooker the edge.
It'd be hard. And what they'll, I'm sorry.
No, it's Hooker and Stroud. That's the 2-horse race.
I think they are. And what they'll look at, and we talk about dual threat versus Stroud, it'll be the touchdowns accounted for. I think they'll look at that. So if Stroud's at 35 touchdown passes and Hooker has a combination that gets to 35, I think that cancels it out a little bit. But I think Hooker's the favorite right now.
Right now it's 29-25, I think. Stroud's got 29 and Hooker's got 25 combined. Last thing, I'm going to put it up here, but the Biletnikoff Award, I think this one's in the bag. 14 touchdowns already. Jalen Hyatt, I think, is going to run away with this one unless Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State goes absolutely crazy down the stretch. He had a big game yesterday, but I think Hyatt's got this one. I'm just going to ask Josh this. You mentioned it in the break. You were talking about Devontae Smith winning the Heisman at Alabama.
He had 17 touchdowns when he was voted the Heisman winner, 3 more than what Hyatt has now. Hyatt has a chance to pass Devontae Smith what he did winning the Heisman Trophy. So Jalen's not going to win the Heisman. I'd be really surprised there. He has a chance to get to the Heisman ceremony with his teammate Hendon Hooker.
That's incredible.
But they still take votes away from him.
Yeah, but I'm sitting there thinking,
point.
and you also wonder in terms of the Biletnikoff, just Tillman coming back. Last night they kind of pushed him back in there. It was a gentle relaunch. Does he take away numbers from Hyatt down the stretch? But the reason I wanted you to say those numbers, he may not win the Heisman. You're walking away with the Biletnikoff. If you've got those kind of numbers, that's yours. That's
not going to be caught.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to everybody here. When we come back, it's the Vols' biggest game in 20 years. What are the keys to a Tennessee victory in Athens? We'll discuss that next. Come on back.
Miss an episode? Catch up at sportsource.tv or our YouTube channel.